Yeah, I'd love to touch on this, so bear with me for a second, because it really pisses me off that one person can make a report that in turn the entire media sports world runs with as factual. To the point of my agency and my agents have to put a statement out that they never have done. Historically, CAA, Jimmy Sexton, and Ed Manowitz have never do that. But I had to do that to protect my locker room and my team. And I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I thought it was completely unprofessional of that person to put that report out. And the fact that everybody ran with it is borderline embarrassing for the media. And I respect what you guys do. I really do. And everybody else. But the fact that everybody ran that as truth is really embarrassing. Okay, so I've got a small circle when I make decisions on what I do and what I don't do. And nobody would speak on my behalf without me knowing. And so where that report came from, I'd love to talk to that person because it's absolutely ridiculous.
Coaching carousel is in full swing. Will Steve Sarkisian be a part of it? We are getting into that and more here on Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports post the Miracle in Starkville. We will break down this past weekend's game and look ahead to a top 10 matchup at DKR. When Texas steps on the field this weekend, it'll be their first game at DKR in 42 days. This is Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. It is Tuesday, October 28th, around 7:30 p.m. Central Time. My name is Michael Ween. As always, I'm joined by my fantastic co-host, Emmy Nixon. Before we get to Emmy, make sure that you guys are liking our videos. If you haven't, we do appreciate the views, but please subscribe. Vast majority of people who watch our videos aren't subscribed to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. You'll forget you did it probably the next day after you do it, or the next 5 minutes after you do it. It just helps the algorithm and it helps us. So we greatly appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to our channel. Remember, we record once a week here on Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. And then usually around midweek, released later in the week, we have an NFL episode on the Raw Prospect Football Podcast as well. We're going to get into the game. We're going to give out our game balls. We're going to talk about it, what happened on Saturday, big picture, and look ahead to this weekend's game. We're also going to get into the major jobs that are open right now in college football as the coaching carousel is in full swing, and it might even get better here in the next couple of weeks. And then at the very end, with college basketball less than 1 week away, we are going to be talking about some of the top prospects. If you are an NBA fan, as the NBA just begun here about a week ago, and you're looking ahead to like next year's draft, which is loaded at the top like we've never seen before, potentially, we're going to be talking about those players here at the end. So, with all that being said, we got a lot to get into. I welcome in my co-host, Emmy Nixon. How are you doing on this fine Tuesday before Halloween?
I'm doing well, man. One reason y'all should subscribe is it helps me afford a haircut because I badly need one right now, as you can see. But yeah, I'm doing well. Any week Texas wins is ultimately a good thing. There's definitely negatives that we will get to, but it's survive in advance right now, and that's what Texas has been doing. There's things to clean up as there always is, but at the end of the day, we're 6-2, and we have an opportunity to bolster our resume a little bit come this weekend against the top 10 opponent at home. So big opportunity.
Yep, and we'll also get into, will Arch Manning play this weekend? That is a big topic right now around the 40 acres as he sustained a concussion in overtime, which then had Matthew Caldwell come in to throw that game-winning touchdown, or what was the game-winning touchdown to Emmett Mosley. He's in concussion protocol. So will he play or will not he play? That is a big question for this weekend. Let's do just that. So number 22 Texas stuns Mississippi State in what was a game that was mostly controlled by Mississippi State. They took a 17-point lead twice. Going into the fourth quarter, they had that 17-point lead, and Texas comes back and they win it in overtime, 45-38, in what I'm calling the miracle in Starkville, what other people are calling the miracle in Sarkville. So, let's get your big picture thoughts on this win. I'll give you mine, and then we'll get into some game balls.
Big picture, the special teams for this team is a real strength. It is something that has, in the past, been a bugaboo for Texas, particularly last year, with the kicking game and even just general execution in punt return and kick return. You would see penalties a lot in lack of execution in that nature. But this year, it's been above and beyond. So all credit to Ryan Niblett, all credit to that special teams coordinator that we brought in as well. Can't think of his name right now, but that's what I'll start with. I got to give credit there, and then the second thing is this team has a lot of fight, man. I will be the first to admit that this the football on the field has not been the most entertaining product in the world, to say the least. But they have been finding a way to grind out these games, man. So credit to them. That goes for offense and defense, because if the defense hadn't bowed up on those last few series of the game, offense like everything the offense did wouldn't have mattered. So I think just there's a lot of fight within that locker room, and then the special teams. Those are two things that I think are overwhelming positives. There's a lot of other, players here and there that you got to shout out to, but those are the two things I start with.
I think before you can talk about what Texas potentially won on Saturday with that comeback over Mississippi State, you have to talk about what they avoided if the alternative had resulted or had happened. And that's kind of the attitude that I'm going to take here. It hasn't been pretty. If you want pretty football, as Emmy said, watching Texas this year isn't going to be for you. If you want to go watch 50-0 beatdowns, go watch Indiana. Go watch Ohio State. If you want pretty offense, they're out there. It's just not going to be this Texas team.
Yeah.
But if Texas had lost this game, it would have arguably been Steve Sarkisian's worst loss in his 4.5 seasons now at Texas, as Mississippi State has now lost 16 straight SEC games, 17 straight SEC games, something along those lines. They're much improved this year, and they're scrappy. And when their quarterback plays like he did on Saturday, they're probably going to end up winning a game here pretty soon. I don't know what their schedule is, but that's a better football team than their record suggests at this point in the season. Like, you watch Mississippi State play, and they don't scream, oh, this team's 0-4 in conference play. But they are. But Texas avoided getting dominated, getting run out of the building by Mississippi State on a day where earlier in the day, Diana Rossini, who I actually do really respect for a lot of the reporting that she does, put out a report that said, which stemmed from The Athletic, which said that Steve Sarkisian would potentially have interest in NFL head coaching jobs, including the Tennessee Titans. So, Sark's agency, that's why I played the clip earlier, had to put out a statement refuting that report, and we can go back and forth on whether or not we think there's legitimacy to his interest in the NFL. And you know how those outside rumors can affect a locker room. And when that report comes out on game day, it's just a little bit worrisome. And so he does that to protect the locker room. But I'm telling you, with what I know about Texas fans and what I know about this fan base and the pressure that Steve Sarkisian and the criticism that he's been under over the last month or two throughout this season, especially the last couple weeks, going back to the game against Kentucky where they questioned him as the offensive play caller. If they had lost this game, things may have completely fallen apart at the seams. It could have been legitimately a five. It would be a 5-alarm fire today on this podcast, but it would go much beyond that, right? It could affect recruiting, maybe not for this cycle, but next cycle. It could affect Sark's future in the program. It could affect players' futures in the program. It could affect the trajectory overall of the program. Coming back and winning that game before we can talk about like the implications of it moving forward, which I honestly don't know what they are. They could be good. They could be bad. You have to at least be happy today for what they avoided, for what the alternative could have been, because it could have been complete disaster if they had lost that game in the fashion that they were looking to be losing it. I was worried that at 38-21, it was going to get to maybe like 45-21 or even into the 50s. And I think we saw defensively, Michael Taft really fucking matters.
Bingo.
Like,
I was going to mention that.
He's so important to this defense. What do we know about this defense? And then I'll pass it back to you for some, you can build off my point and then you can give out some more game balls. What do we know about this defense, Emmy? We know that in 6 of the 8 games this year, they've allowed 14 points or less. But in 2 of those games, they've had less than ideal performances. In this game and in the Florida game. But what were the circumstances in those 2 games? In the Florida game, if you remember, they were missing Malik Muhammad, a key piece in the secondary and a linchpin in this defense. And then Saturday, they were missing Michael Taft because he broke his thumb and had surgery in the Kentucky game. He'll be out probably until after the bye week. And what do you see Mississippi State do? They were attacking the middle of the field like crazy. I think most of their touchdowns came over the middle of the field, if I'm remembering correctly. Those 2 guys really matter. And so, like, as much depth of talent that Texas has on this defense, Xavier Filsaime and Derek Williams coming off major injury ain't even close to the same thing as Michael Taft because he's always in the right position. If nothing else, he's always going to be in the right spot at the right time, and he's going to make plays.
And he's going to make sure everybody is in the right spot.
Yep.
The leadership, I thought, defensively wasn't quite there as well. And from a run game standpoint, we also saw it in guys in their run fits, particularly coming down from the secondary. The Texas D-line doesn't give up a lot of holes, but when they do give up holes, Michael Taft is there. Usually it's Jelani McDonald is there. But this time around without Taft, it just seemed like the consistency in assignment discipline wasn't there, especially in that third quarter. I mentioned this to my dad when I was watching the game. I was like, it feels like the Texas defense has like checked out almost. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, they realized they had a chance again and they locked back in, which, I don't know how accurate that actually is, but that's what it felt like watching it. I think for like moving forward, it has to be a constant stress to maintain that consistency and execution. And that's not something we've talked about from this defense a whole lot. That's been an offensive thing, but it extended to the defense for sure on Saturday.
Game balls. 2 to 3 names that stood out to you outside of, I guess, the guy you already mentioned, which was Ryan Niblett. I'll talk about him too, but outside of that and the special teams, who else individually stood out to you on Saturday?
Arch Manning. He played his ass off, man. It wasn't perfect, but we saw the flashes of elite talent once again, especially. I mean, when you give Arch nothing to lose, like you give him like kind of back against the wall, just go and rip it like that. It feels like that's when he's at his best. We saw that down in the fourth quarter at Ohio State. We saw that even against Florida in that fourth quarter. He kept Texas in that game, despite his surrounding cast kind of failing him in that game. But I think beyond Arch, it's Anthony Hill and it's Colin Simmons. Those guys really came to play. And actually, I do want to mention Ethan Burke as well. I believe he won co-defensive lineman of the week in the SEC, something like that. Yeah. He had a big day as well. Obviously, with that fumble forced in that overtime game ender.
Yeah. All those guys I want to touch on. So first on my game balls list is Anthony Hill Jr. He had a historically great game. I don't think people realize how productive Anthony Hill was on Saturday. 10 total tackles, which on the surface for Anthony Hill doesn't seem like a whole lot. But involved in all of that was 3.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 9 pressures, and a forced fumble. Do people realize that in the last 4 games, so in SEC play, Anthony Hill leads the Power 4 in tackles at 43. He has 12 quarterback pressures as a Mike linebacker, first in the SEC. He's got 5 quarterback hits as a Mike linebacker, first in the SEC. He's got 2.5 sacks as a Mike linebacker. All those came on Saturday, but regardless, 5th in the SEC. He's got an interception in that Kentucky game last week, a forced fumble in this game. Texas didn't recover it, but he did force a fumble. And then in coverage, on 16 targets, Anthony Hill has allowed a 52.9 NFL quarterback rating, which is 6th in Power 4 amongst all defenders and first in the SEC. He is literally playing like one of the best defensive players in the country, period.
Yeah.
Since SEC play began. So credit to Anthony Hill Jr. His NFL stock is shooting through the roof if it didn't already coming into the season. But like, I hate when they take him out. I get it. In some situations, you want Ty Anthony Smith on the field. In some situations, you want Leon O'Fell on the field. But I prefer to have Anthony Hill in there on more snaps. I believe on one of Mississippi State's touchdowns in the red zone on 3rd and 10, I think it was, they took Anthony Hill out of the game and they threw right literally to that spot to a tight end, and he ran it in for a touchdown. So I wish he could play more. I don't know why I guess it's just for rest. I wish he would be on the field every snap, but when he's on the field, he's as good of a football player as you can find in this country in college football. So good for him. I didn't have Colin Simmons on my game balls list, particularly for this game, but he did make a couple of great plays. And same thing as Anthony Hill, turns out when SEC play started, those two guys really flipped the switch, and he's been one of the best players in college football since then as well. Ryan Niblett, Holy cow, man. Where did
Yeah.
this come from? He's the unsung hero officially of this football team. Game time, not just a 79-yard punt return touchdown, but a game time 79-yard punt return touchdown with 147 left in regulation. That was likely going to be Texas's last possession that they would have gotten. And instead of the offense having to worry about or do anything, Ryan Niblett took care of it for them. So credit to him. On 16 punt returns this year, he has 408 yards. That's an average of 25.5 yards per return. If he keeps up that pace, if he finishes the season at 25.5 yards per return, he will finish top 5 single season college football history punt return average. We're not just talking about like All-American this year. We're talking about one of the greatest seasons punt returning of all time. He's one touchdown away from tying the single season Texas punt return touchdown record. And he's got the most punt return yards through week 9 of a college football season for any FBS football player dating back to 2016 when data started being tracked. And he's 95 yards ahead of the second place guy. So, my goodness, Ryan Niblett, like credit to him. I think they just got him a new car today. I saw that on social media. So, I mean, he deserves it. If anyone on this team deserves it, he does.
Yeah.
That NIL package is going to be massive in the offseason.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to see him run a 40-yard dash because he doesn't look like he's moving that fast, but then he just outruns everybody. And you're just like, whoa, what just happened? Like he's not juking people. He's not doing anything like super flashy. It's just like he's tough to bring down. He has great contact balance. We see dudes bounce off him on arm tackles, and he knows how to create angles for his blockers. Like when he like had that return, he set it up perfectly. Like he waited for everything to get cleared out, got to the sideline, and then all of a sudden there was just everything was blocked off for him to run right down the sideline. It was obviously great execution from that unit, but also he set it up by the way he ran that. I don't know if that was deliberately planned by him, but I mean, he is something special, man. He really is.
First of all, if you're Jeff Lebby in that situation, why are you punting him the ball? Why are you even letting him touch it? Have you watched this guy the past couple of weeks?
Kick it out of bounds.
I don't know. Like you can punt it anywhere, but I would not have let him touch the ball of all humans because he's
you can try to pin him to the sideline too. It won't matter.
Yeah, he's got the hottest hand on this entire team right now,
Yeah.
outside of the two guys on defense that we spoke of. You mentioned Ethan Burke. He was in my honorable mentions, and honestly, probably could have gotten one too if we had like unlimited game balls. But I wanted to give some credit to Emmett Mosley, the fifth.
Yeah.
His numbers aren't going to blow you away, right? He only had 4 catches, 53 yards, but he had 2 critical touchdown catches. If you're only going to have 4 catches in a game, scoring touchdowns on 2 of those catches, including a game-winning touchdown in overtime, is the way to make the most of those. And he made the most of his opportunities on Saturday. Remember, this is a guy with multiple years of eligibility left. He was slow to start the season because he was a late pickup in the portal, and then he was hurt for most of fall camp, dealing with some sort of, I think it was a hamstring injury, and we know how sensitive those injuries can be. Didn't even play until I don't remember his first game. I think it might have been the Sam Houston game, if I'm remembering correctly. but didn't even play to like week 3 or week 4 and is now kind of making a name for himself in this offense. He's not necessarily a volume guy yet, but he catches the ball. He's pretty reliable, and he scored 2 key touchdowns in this game, including the game-winning touchdown in overtime, which was not an easy catch. Like, yes, he caught the ball and he ran a pretty good route, got some separation, but that ball was a little bit – Matthew Caldwell put probably a little bit much on that ball, and he was still able to reach out, grab it, and keep a foot in bounds.
Yeah.
I thought was really impressive. But Ethan Burke, maybe his best game as a Texas Longhorn. It's up there. 7 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, a forced fumble, and that blocked field goal, which when you look back on it, was pretty damn important. That blocked field goal in the first quarter was pretty damn impressive. And I wanted to give a shout out to a guy we haven't talked about much this year on the defensive line. Alex January showed up big time in this game. He had 5 tackles, he had a sack and a half, and he had the game-sealing fumble recovery. I mean, a guy on Texas that can actually recover a fumble. What do you know?
Yeah, they exist.
So, yeah, I mean, overall, and look, I haven't even talked about Arch. I guess that's the last kind of conversation we need to get into is like the quarterback situation right now. I thought Arch played a really good game, maybe as good as he's been this year overall. But the second half was the best half he's played in his career.
Yeah.
I think he finished 17 for 27 for over 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and a 165 quarterback efficiency rating. That's more along the lines of the level of performance people were hyping him up to perform at coming in. He finishes the game overall with a 143.4 quarterback rating, which is right about in most games last year what Quinn Ewers was doing. So I think the interception brought the rating down a bit. There were some drops in there that probably could have helped too. But overall, like even getting pressure the way that he was in the first half, I thought he played a really good game. It wasn't by any means perfect, and I don't think he's going to play a perfect game this year. But he did enough in the end for Texas to win the game. So good on Arch. The big question, though, is does he play this week? Here's what I'll say on that. It's possible. It's possible to come back from a concussion the next week. The thing with the concussion protocol, though, is there are steps that you have to clear, and if you suffer a setback, you start over again. So it's a very tight needle that you have to thread here in order for him to play on Saturday against Vanderbilt, but it can be done. So I think what we're going to see is him being a game time decision on Saturday. I think that's what it's ultimately going to come down to. So Matthew Caldwell is going to have to be ready. Based on the small sample size we've seen of Matthew Caldwell this year, which is like 12 pass attempts, he's looked pretty good. All I'll say is don't expect the offense to don't expect him to be an upgrade over what Arch has been this year because he doesn't have quite the mobility that Arch does. And this was ultimately, not to take a shot at him, this was ultimately a guy at Troy and Gardner-Webb the past couple of years that played around a 129, 135 quarterback efficiency rating, which isn't great. So he's serviceable. And he certainly looks good in his opportunities. Credit to him. But for the people wanting him to be like an upgrade over Arch, I wouldn't get your hopes up.
Yeah,
I'm not even ruling out the possibility he plays a great game on Saturday, but I just don't think his skill set. I don't want to be this guy tonight, but I don't think his skill set screams like, yes, he's definitely going to upgrade this Texas offense. Because one of the better parts of this Texas offense is when Arch can take off and run and pick up first downs with his legs. I don't know if Matthew Caldwell can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, he came to Texas to be the backup.
Yeah.
If he was I mean, it sounds like we're taking shots at the guy, but I don't really mean to do that. But like, if he was, this like amazing player that Texas fans seem to think he is, thinking that he's gonna take over Arch's job or something. If he was some amazing player, he would have a starting job somewhere. In this day and age in college football, they are out there. You wouldn't go to Texas to be a backup. Like, you wouldn't. Now, that being said, I probably feel about as good about him as you could possibly feel about your backup quarterback, which is a really good thing. I think he's going to come in, execute the offense, take care of the football, and that's really all you can ask for. What Texas needs to do is be able to run the ball, which is going to be a challenge against Vanderbilt. But we won't get into that just yet.
Yeah. It's a cool story, man. Like you're right. He can't. The reason Texas brought him in was exactly this. If Arch has to go out for a possession like he did on Saturday, if Arch has to go out for a possession like he did on Saturday, you have a guy who has experience in college football, and you don't have to immediately go to a true freshman in KJ Lacey or a guy who hasn't played at all in Trey Owens. It was to raise the floor at the backup quarterback position. And with all the injuries that we've seen Texas have at the quarterback position, a lot of it unlucky stuff. This is why they bring him in. We're 32 minutes in. We do need to move on. Any closing thoughts on this game or the Vanderbilt game before we move on to the coaching carousel?
Well, I will close with this. If I'm a Mississippi State fan, I'm pissed about two things. One, why the hell are you putting your backup quarterback in the game with the game on the line after the performance that your starter has had? Like that made no sense to me. And then number two, they were blitzing the hell out of this Texas O line in the first half, and Texas was having a lot of trouble picking up the blitz, and just being able to communicate and pick up the right guy was a huge challenge for Texas. And then it felt like in the second half they got this big lead, they backed off, they stopped sending those blitzes, and all of a sudden Arch had time to throw, and that was that. So that's what I would be mad about if I was a Mississippi State fan.
Yeah, but what I will say about Mississippi State is credit to some former Longhorns that are on that team.
Yeah.
Darian Gillette, I think, had a sack or two. He was impactful in the game on defense for them. And then Brennan Thompson, I think, had a couple touchdowns in that game. So a couple former Longhorns making an impact on that team. So good for them. All right, we got to move on, and we'll see where we're at once we end this discussion. This could take the entire rest of the episode for all I know. If it does, we'll readjust at the end. Okay. This coaching carousel is nuts already. You've got Penn State. The Penn State job is open. The Florida job is open. They cut ties with Billy Napier last weekend after they won a game against Mississippi State. And then LSU has now opened. LSU cuts ties with Brian Kelly in the immediate aftermath on Sunday after A&M walked into Death Valley and basically took a shit all over their field. So we've got those three jobs open, and then you can talk about UCLA, you can talk about Arkansas, Oklahoma State. there are some major Power 4 jobs that are open right now. I want to frame this discussion in terms of the 2 SEC jobs that are now open. And there might be 1 or 2 more that could open here in the near future. But in terms of Florida and LSU, let's start the conversation here, Emmy. If you are a guy like Lane Kiffin, who I can already tell you both of these programs have on their list, what is the better job for you? What is the more appealing job to you if you're a guy like Lane Kiffin? Florida or LSU?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that it would be LSU. But I also think that in this era of college football, I don't think it would be smart for him to leave Ole Miss. He's already built that thing up, and he's already proven that he can bring in the 5-star quarterbacks he needs to bring in. He can bring in the talent he needs to bring in. Now, obviously, the resources that Ole Miss can provide isn't the same as what you would get at Florida or LSU, but it's a more level playing field than it's ever been in college football. So I think if you ask me, like, can you win a national championship at Ole Miss? Yeah, I think you can. So I don't see him leaving.
I think LSU is slightly the better job than Florida, but not by much.
Yeah.
If you're asking me between both jobs, can you win a national championship at Florida and LSU? Both. Yes. They both have national championship ceilings. In both states, do you have, by just recruiting those states alone, do you have enough talent in that state at the high school level to build a college football program that can win a national championship? Yes. In both Louisiana and Florida, there's enough talent to where if you just recruited those states, you could probably build a national championship contender. In fact, I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Because they've done it before. The thing right now that I think the 2 things for me that separate, because both programs were a little slow starting off in terms of NIL and financial support within their athletic programs. From a higher up standpoint, from a donor standpoint, they were a little slow getting going and adjusting to the NIL landscape, especially on the Florida side of things. But now both programs we've seen have that in order. They have the NIL money and the revenue sharing now to spend on their roster to acquire talent in roster or talent acquisition. I think the 2 things right now that would separate LSU from Florida slightly in the minds of most coaches, maybe not all coaches out there that might be candidates, but in the minds of most coaches, and I think in the minds of most fans, tell me if you agree with this, it's just one, LSU's been a little bit more stable here in the last decade, and they have more recent success winning national championships. And then 2, I think it's a little bit easier, and nothing's easy in recruiting with the more even landscape that we have with NIL and the transfer portal, but it would feel to me to be a little bit easier at LSU as the major program in that state, the major Power 4 program in that state, to kind of put a fence, put a wall around the state and keep a lot of the elite talent in Louisiana at home at LSU, because you're really the only major Power 4 program in that state, if I'm not mistaken. As opposed to Florida, yes, you're the University of Florida, and when you're rolling, when you have the right guy, you can do that. You can keep a lot of the best talent, in the state of Florida coming to the University of Florida. But now with Miami back to national relevancy and with all the NIL money that they're trying to spend, and Florida State with potentially a new coach, but all the resources in the world, and we know that they compete. All these schools compete for the same guy. So what I'm saying is, I think in terms of recent success and just recent stability, LSU has had more of that. Clearly, they won a national championship in like the last half decade, and I think it's a little easier to like recruit the state because Florida has so much more competition in their state. That's just my opinion, though. I could be wrong. So here's what I can tell you, and then we can get to like candidates that you might think of, Emmy. But here's what I can tell you about both jobs based on intel that I've read. In terms of the Florida job, I can tell you that Lane Kiffin is their number one on their list. That's been reported by pretty much everybody at this point. He's their clear number one choice. Now, will they be able to get him to come? I have no earthly idea. But he's their number one. If they can't get Lane Kiffin, there are some other guys that are on their list. And then in terms of LSU, what I can tell you about that for sure is sources close to that program are saying that they are not going to end this coaching search without calling Nick Saban. It might be unattainable, but they're going to talk to Nick Saban and they're going to make him say no. They're going to try to make him reconsider retirement. And then if that doesn't work, their next choice is Lane Kiffin. And after that there's a lot of names elsewhere. So that's what I know about both coaching searches. I think Josh Pate has echoed a lot of those sentiments. That's according to Pete Nakos over at On3, who's broke a lot of the coaching news so far. So, I mean, in terms of candidates for both of these jobs, outside of Lane Kiffin, which we know is going to be one for both of these, do any names stand out for either job to you?
Of Joe Brady going back to, that's one comes to mind. I think it would be an amazing fit if he's willing to take it. The offensive coordinator at Texas A&M. I haven't heard his name thrown around at all. Maybe it's because he's a little bit young for a head coach in college football. But I do see, I do see that, the level that he's getting that Texas A&M offense to, and it's been pretty impressive stuff since he's gotten there, for the most part. And then, of course, you got to throw Jay too, given his track record. It's not the most flashy hire in the world, but a 70% winning percentage, damn near. I mean, it speaks for it.
Yeah.
Did I lose you?
Okay. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Those are some.
Go ahead.
Those are some interesting names that you brought up. I think on the LSU front, I think there is going to be a want to potentially go younger and innovative on the offensive side of the football. Kind of in contrast to what they've done in the past. They've gone kind of the older, more experienced route in the past. When they hired Nick Saban, he wasn't old, but he was 48, more of a defensive-minded guy when they hired him. And then you look at guys like Les Miles and Ed Orgeron, both much older guys when they were hired at LSU. Both had success. I'm not saying you can't have success going that route, but I think knowing what I know about and reading what I've read about this LSU coaching search, they're going to want to go a little bit younger. And one of the goals is going to be, can we re-energize this offense, which has been the kind of the downfall of this year's team, a very limited offense. So if they were to go the younger coordinator route, then yeah, Joe Brady is definitely a guy that I think is going to get a call. Familiarity with the program and all of that. Won a national championship there. Helped win a national championship there. So yes, he could definitely be on the list. Colin Klein's been mentioned on lists. I think he's in a great situation at A&M. I don't know that he's ready to take the step to a head coach, but maybe. If he's offered the job, I wouldn't doubt that he would take it. And given what he's done with that A&M offense this year, he could be a candidate. If I'm Florida, I'm taking a look at Alex Golesh, who's having a fantastic year at USF in that state. They're one of the best G5 programs in all of college football. Now, I don't know if Florida wants to go the group of 5 route, but Alex Golesh is a young and up-and-coming coach who's the last couple of years at USF had a lot of success for a program that historically has not had any success. If I'm Florida, that's not my first choice. Certainly not. But if you get to like plan D and E, he certainly could be a good candidate. I don't really know if I see Florida going the coordinator route. I think they want an established head coach. And so if they can't get Lane Kiffin, I think they're going to take a look at Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, what he's done with that Missouri program the last couple of years. Still has them in position to potentially make the college football playoff, but they lose their quarterback. He's done a fantastic job there. So I think they could look at him if they don't get Kiffin. And there are a couple other names on this list that I find intriguing. Jeff Brom, at Louisville. He's in contention for the ACC title this year. And he's done more with less than just about anybody else in college football with the job that he did at Purdue and the job that he's done at Louisville and building that program to where it is now. He could get a call if they get down to like their 4th or 5th options. If I'm both these programs, I don't think it's attainable, but I'm giving Marcus Freeman a call and I'm making him tell me no. There are some other interesting candidates out there. I think Matt Campbell at Iowa State's a fantastic football coach. I just don't know that he's a fit in the SEC. I see him more as maybe a fit at Penn State in the Big Ten. But he's a great football coach with what he's done at Iowa State. There are some interesting names here, but for both of those jobs, Lane Kiffin's going to be the dude. LSU is going to shoot their shot with Nick Saban. Why not? I don't think that's going to happen, but they're going to shoot their shot.
Yeah.
And I partially agree with you. I don't know, and I'm not certain that Lane Kiffin is going to leave. But he's certainly going to have leverage. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
To maybe get a huge contract extension at Ole Miss, or maybe he does end up taking one of these jobs. We'll see. The interesting thing is going to be the timing of all this. Both these programs have already fired their coaches. They're getting a start on the search, right? But with Ole Miss, they beat Oklahoma this past weekend, and if you look at their remaining schedule, I think they're almost a lock to get into the playoff. And so if they do get into the playoff, they're going to be playing an extra game or potentially a couple extra games going into December and January. So how long are Florida and LSU going to be willing to wait for Lane Kiffin to take this job? Because he's not bailing on that program before their season is officially over. And that's kind of the hurdle that both these programs have to clear. Same thing with Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. If like, for example, LSU were able to get Marcus Freeman on the hook, maybe he has always had a desire to coach at, in the LSU, hypothetically. I don't think it happens, but hypothetically. Notre Dame could also be a team that makes the playoff. So, like, that timeline could be pushed back, theoretically. So, like, I don't know, man. Maybe Eli Drinkwitz will end up with one of these coaching jobs, because I don't know with their quarterback injury now that Missouri is going to be a team that is able to get in the playoff. Prayers up to Bo Perbula, their quarterback, who's hurt. And there are some other interesting coordinators too. We know people love picking at the coaching tree of Kirby Smart, and Glenn Schumann, their defensive coordinator, could be a hot candidate at some point. But yeah, it should be really fun. And there are two programs in my head right now, Emmy, that I think could open up two jobs that could also open up here pretty soon. I bet you can guess at least one of them. Can you guess both of them?
Florida State.
Yep.
And Auburn.
Correct. You got it. Those are the two main ones that I was thinking of. But what I will say is, coming into this weekend, even with a loss to A&M, I was not thinking of LSU as a job that could come open, at least right now. But it did. So you never know. Like, if Oklahoma's season completely falls apart, could Brent Venables be on the chopping block? I don't think so. But you never know. It's college football, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, I'll also throw in Kenny Dillingham's name as well.
Yes. Yeah, he's got things rolling at Arizona State.
Yeah.
He seems to love that program. I think that's his alma mater, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, if you
Write
got
that check, you never know.
If he gets the check from, I think that'd be a great hire at LSU.
I think so too. I think that would check a lot of the boxes. He's young. He's 35. Has a track record in the college football playoff, and not even just making the college football playoff, almost winning a game in the playoff, very nearly. So he's been there, done that, and he hasn't even been coaching that long as a head coach.
Yeah, and I wonder, does Clark Lee potentially get a call from any of these programs? He's the coach at Vanderbilt. If Vanderbilt gets in the playoff, he could get some calls too. So
yeah,
even if they don't get in the playoff, he still earned that much respect to where he could get calls. Maybe not at a program like Florida or LSU, but like, would Clark Lee be willing to take the Arkansas job? Maybe not with what he has going at Vanderbilt right now, but there's the Virginia Tech job that's open. There's Oklahoma State, there's UCLA, there's Stanford, there's Oregon State, there's Colorado State, there's UAB. He's not moving down, but what I'm saying is there are a lot of jobs, and I think Clark Lee's name will be involved in some of these searches. If I make one bold prediction about a hire that's going to happen at any of these programs, what do you think? Just make a bold prediction.
My bold prediction is that someone that we don't think is pluckable will get plucked. Like I could see like a Mario Cristobal or like a someone that's unexpected. Just
Do
all
you
of a
think
sudden pop
would
up
you
in the league.
put Marcus Freeman into the unpluckable category?
I think with Notre Dame's stature as a program in the NIL era, he'd be, it would take a lot to get him to leave there.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Anything else on the coaching carousel, Emmy, before we move on to wrap this thing
No, I
up?
think that's it.
Okay. So that's Florida and LSU for you. We will
bro.
we will move on. We're at about 55 minutes.
No, that's it.
So what we'll do here is we'll talk a little college basketball with whatever time we have remaining. First of all, Emmy. In terms of players that you're watching, it can be because here's how I'll put it. In this upcoming NBA draft, there's 3 guys that could potentially have the potential and skill set to become potentially like the next Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Anthony Edwards types, right? Paolo Banchero types. There are 3 guys that kind of fit that prototype. I don't know how much you know about any of them. Cam Boozer at Duke, AJ DeBonsta at BYU, and Darren Peterson at Kansas. They're all freshmen, all going to be one and dones, most likely. Any of those guys or any NBA draft eligible prospect across college basketball that interests you that you want to discuss here in the last 10 minutes?
Well, the Boozer twins at Duke. Those are the 2 that pop into my head. There's another name too. AJ DeBansta.
Yep.
He was the top recruit that pops to mind, but not super well versed on his game, to be honest.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Boozer twins, Caden's great. He's a good player, and he's going to help that Duke team this year, but Cam Boozer is the star of the show here. He's listed at 6'9", 250 on the Duke roster, but he's probably bigger than that. He's a problem. Duke had a big problem last year with Cooper Flagg. This Cam Boozer kid, the son of Carlos Boozer, is a problem. In their last exhibition game against Tennessee, the kid had 24 points and 23 rebounds. And then the game before that, he had 33 points and 12 rebounds. The kid's putting up, I know it's just preseason, I know it's just exhibition games, but the kid's putting up Anthony Davis 2015 numbers already at Duke. And this isn't scrimmaging Tennessee School of the Blind. This is scrimmaging Rick Barnes and, the Tennessee Volunteers, the program that was in the Elite Eight last year. So he's good. If I had to put a bet down on one of these guys going number 1 next year, it's probably Cam Boozer. But it all depends on what team that is trying to get that first pick so desperately right now. There are probably 5 teams in the NBA right now that just completely do not give a shit. We can probably list a lot of them off. But I think it depends a lot on what team gets the number 1 pick. But if I had to put my money down right now, I'd probably put my money down on Cam Boozer. He's got an all-around game. And if you watch him, he's absolutely relentless on the glass. He's super strong, both in his lower body and his upper body. He's a great rebounder. I don't think he has quite the ability or ceiling defensively that Cooper Flag did. I don't know that he's as game changing on the defensive end of the floor as Cooper Flag was, but from an offensive standpoint, he's really good, really efficient, and he's made strong strides in terms of his outside shooting, 3-point shooting, perimeter shot creation. Made a couple, I think more than a couple threes, actually, a handful of threes. I'll just put it that way. In their exhibition against Tennessee, so like he can create a little bit in the post from everywhere on offense. I think he's a better shooter at this stage than Paulo Banchero ever was. This guy's got legitimate like first year all-star, maybe not all-star, but definitely like really high upside, as do all these other guys at the top. AJ DeBonsta, if he reaches his ceiling, could be like the next Jason Tatum, like legitimately. He could finish as one of the best American-born prospects of the last 25 years. He could be up there with the likes of Cooper Flag and Anthony Davis. Two-way jumbo wing, can score at all three levels. Absolutely frightening when he attacks downhill. Can finish at the rim. Go watch the dude. He's pretty incredible, and BYU is going to be damn good because of him this year. And then Darren Peterson at Kansas. Holy cow, that guy. We haven't really seen like an elite guard prospect at Kansas the last half decade, but they got one in Darren Peterson. 6'6" and can shoot the lights out. Kind of a jumbo guard, dynamic scorer, perimeter creator. 26 points in the first half against Louisville this past weekend. And Louisville's no slouch defensively. He's at his ceiling, he could be like a bigger Donovan Mitchell. He could be, I don't know that he's as athletic and explosive as Anthony Edwards, but definitely has like he could be a primary ball creator for an NBA or shot creator on an NBA roster. He's that good. And he's neither AJ DeBonsta or Cam Boozer defensively yet, but he does have upside on that end of the floor. A lot of these high school prospects aren't really at all consistent on defense anyway, so maybe Bill Self will be able to coach that into him a little bit. But all three of these guys, I'm telling you, you might not understand now, and I don't completely understand what I'm watching right now, specifically on the NBA side of things. Maybe we can close with some parting shots. But these three guys, there are three legitimate prizes at the top of this next NBA draft. Three guys that could legitimately turn into like all-star level, all NBA level players eventually if they reach their ceiling. So keep an eye when the season starts. If you watch any college basketball, if you watch Duke against Texas here in a week when they open the season, watch Cam Boozer. If you watch BYU at all this year, watch AJ DeBonsta, and if you watch Kansas, which I'm sure you will, you'll get a good look at Darren Peterson. And then there's more. There are more talents out there, but we don't have time to get to all of them right now. So
yeah,
we will
that
throughout
kid
the
from
season.
UConn, I've seen clips of him a little bit. He looks pretty good as well.
Yep. So we'll continue the college basketball conversation as the season begins. We'll have another episode probably Sunday, right before the season starts. I actually wanted to finish with, since we're talking basketball, just like some thoughts on what you've seen in the NBA so far, or any parting shots in the world of sports for that matter. If not the NBA, it can be NFL. Well, not NFL. Save that for tomorrow. But anything else, like any parting shots in terms of the world of sports that you want to put out there?
Shohei Ohtani.
That. Yep.
I'm about to go watch that game in a second once we get here. But Yeah, he's ridiculous. He's ridiculous.
He is. On base 9 times last night. Kid you not, I was watching the Spurs game. We were supposed to record yesterday, but I was watching the Spurs game. We didn't record yesterday. I watched the Spurs game against the Raptors, and then I tuned into the Dodgers Blue Jays game 3.
Frozen. Oh, there we go.
I tuned into Dodgers Blue Jays game 3, middle of the 7th inning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You're good.
Okay, I tuned in, bottom of the 7th inning, game tied at 5. Expecting to only watch like a couple innings of baseball. And I still saw over a full game of baseball.
Yeah.
Because the game went to 18 innings. And I didn't stay awake for all of it, but I was awake for the Freddie Freeman walk-off. And so Blue Jays fans, I feel your pain. I know what that feels like. Not after 18 innings necessarily, but I do know what that feels like, getting walked off by Freddie Freeman in the World Series. He does it to everybody. But Shohei Ohtani, like 2 home runs, 4 for 4, getting on base 9 times. And I know they intentionally walked him 4 of those, but like it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Who do you think wins that series?
Man, I think it goes to 7 regardless. It feels like 2 very evenly matched teams, but I give LA the slight edge because they have Ohtani and the other team doesn't.
Yes, I give LA the slight edge because I just I trust their starting pitching a little bit more, and I just think like they're up in this series, and Mookie Betts has literally done 0. I think if he starts hitting, that's a bad sign for Toronto. And Freddie Freeman's an absolute killer.
He's a legend. Yeah.
He's an absolute legend. So
also Mookie could turn it on at any point as well.
That's what I was saying. Like he hasn't hit yet, but if he starts hitting, then you really got a problem if you're Toronto.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see.
I think there's a world where Shohei Ohtani is the starting pitcher in Game 7 of the World Series, and I need that in my life. I need it.
Yeah. I have the score pulled up. I won't spoil anything. But anyways, that's going to mostly do it for this episode of Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. Really fun episode. Really enjoyed this as always. I'm hoping to have some supplemental content out soon. As crazy as it sounds, we're like a little over a month away from National Signing Day. So recruiting is coming down the home stretch here. It is flip season. And so eventually we'll talk some recruiting, and college basketball season is starting, and there has been news in college baseball. So maybe we'll talk about that at some point. My parting shot outside of the World Series would just be, I cannot believe what I'm watching with Victor Wembanyama right now. I don't believe it. But that is that. There have been numerous performances in like this first week of basketball that have just blown my mind.
That just makes 0 sense.
Yeah. So the NBA has been fun so far. We'll see you guys likely later this week for an NFL episode, and then this weekend or early next week for their next edition of Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. But until then, enjoy every win that you get with this team, because it's not going to be pretty every weekend. Likely won't be pretty maybe any weekend, but who cares? Here's what I will say. I do think that if Texas is able to win this weekend against Vanderbilt, not going to be easy at all, but if they are able to pull out a win on Saturday, I think the door is back open for 9-3. I think 9-3 is back on the table if they can beat Vanderbilt. Not saying that will happen, but in order for it to even be possible, they have to win this weekend against Vanderbilt. So,
Yeah.
If not, I think we're likely looking at 8-4, which is likely where I would have landed anyways.
Yeah, 8-4 and trying to play spoiler on the A&M in that game.
Yeah, but at this point, man, I don't think you're spoiling anything for that A&M team. I think they could. I think they could legitimately be walking into that game with house money. Like they could be looking at their schedule, they could be in that game undefeated, and so losing that game wouldn't really affect them at all. Which is why I think Texas has a chance to potentially win that game, because I just think they might not be able to play spoiler to A&M's season necessarily like they were last year, but it's a rivalry game, so you never know what happens. And it's at home. But that's going to do it. We got to get out of here. We're at our limit of 1 hour 10. We'll see you guys next week. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em. Peace out.